And now a story perfect for the holidays. A master gardener who lives in Jackson, Mississippi says he once heard a voice from above tell him to speak to a special needs child at a hospital where he volunteers. Now, 2 years later, he uses the power of dirt to reach out to those sweet souls. It's a part of his life he calls Dominic's garden.
Okay, let's put this in the ground.
John Malinchak started out as a geologist. Poetic that he attended high school in McKees Rocks, Pennsylvania, just outside Pittsburgh. The only A he earned was in earth science.
When they come out, they're going to spread out everywhere.
After high school, John wound up in the South studying geology, thanks to a friend who attended the University of Southern Mississippi and who recommended the school's geology department. John says he was led to the field because he loved the smell of dirt.
And I'd be out there digging in it, looking for worms, and just smelling that rich soil. That's what I fell in love with.
After college, he wound up back north for a time, but his wife from Hattiesburg, Mississippi, wanted to come back home. Thus began a few decades of geology work for the Mississippi Geological Survey and for engineering firms thereafter. From 1975 until just a couple of years ago, he was immersed in this technical life. Then in 2017, he called it quits. And that's where his story really begins, when his wife encouraged him to take the Master Gardener program at Mississippi State.
I signed up for it, and I fell in love with it because to me, it's all science. It's not just growing flowers. It's why does a flower grow? What does that insecticide do? How does that insecticide work on the nerve system? So that's how I studied gardening. I did not want to be a gardener. I could have cared less. 2.5 years ago, I could have cared less. I wanted a nice yard.
But there's another side to John Malinchak, his spiritual side. Driven by his faith, he volunteers at St. Dominic Hospital in Jackson. His experience there ultimately led him to working with kids.
You find that they like to get dirty, just like I do. And that's a connection right there.
These days, John leads the Mississippi Master Gardener Association, and he uses those skills to reach out to special needs children in a program of his own creation called Dominic's Garden. But he constantly harkens back to a time at St. Dominic when he had trouble just being around those who can't really care for themselves.
I had an aversion to special needs people. And the aversion was I felt so bad for them, and I felt that there was nothing I could do. I didn't want to get close to them because it hurt me inside.
That hurt, he says, led to guilt. And then one day at the hospital, as he watched a mother and father wheel their son, a special needs child with Down syndrome, out of the hospital, he heard a voice tell him to speak to the boy. The reaction from the boy's father changed his life.
And as I touched the wheelchair, I looked up, and the father was staring over the roof at me. And I didn't know what he wanted. And in a broken voice, very soft, he said, "I want to thank you for speaking to my son." I said one word, "Goodbye." And I said it reluctantly. He did not say, "Thank you for speaking to my special needs son or my son with Down syndrome." He said, "This is my son, and I thank you for that."
Because of that moment, he dived deeper into his experience with special needs kids. And he came to learn something very important. Fran Patterson, who runs the Little Lighthouse, explains.
These kids are not special. They just are differently abled. We like to say not disabled, differently abled. God gives us all unique gifts and talents, and he gives us extra chromosomes sometimes. Sometimes he messes with the amygdala in our brain, such as the person with autism.
Fran says John seems to have a strong bond with the kids, and she knew it early on.
John shows up with that beautiful table and says, "Now let's get busy doing what I love to do with kids." And he's never worked with kids, like he said, this age. He's always done junior high kids or mustard seed, and it's fun. When they get out here, it's a mess, but it's fun.
And we have, whether it's through gardening, whether through physical therapy, speech therapy, we have an opportunity to change their lives, for the better. rather than 50 years ago.
Boy, that's
You're put in a room
mess.
somewhere, and that's where you stayed.
Thank you.
Again, we're put on this earth to change people positively. And that's what I try to do with gardening, try to impact, I don't care who it is, impact them, positively that day through gardening.
The therapeutic benefits of gardening may seem obvious, but John says this kind of activity in this setting with these children provides therapy on multiple levels.
Walking, stooping down, balance, that's just the physical part. Then there's the mental part. It's like working a crossword puzzle, because there is a sequence to gardening. You dig the hole, you put the plant in, you cover the hole, and then you water. So there is a sequence. Some people, they get confused on that, but you walk them through it.
As John ponders how he will grow the influence and reach of Dominic's garden, one thing is certain. He's getting just as much out of it as the kids.
So many times I'm the student and they're the teachers. There's a world of good out there. They share that with me. I just thank God for that.
An amazing story, Dominic's garden. If you'd like to reach out to John in some way, you can email him at this address, jmalinchak@comcast.net. No doubt he'd be very happy to hear from you.